Our presenter this week, and I know a lot of the people who have joined us will know Alexander either personally or maybe he was your coach at some stage or he worked with your team because he has worked all over the world. Alexander Nikonorov, he has a PhD and doctorate in sport biomechanics. He holds a level 3 coaching certificate in the UK. He was head coach of the Spanish team for 6 years. And for 16 years, he worked with British Canoeing, which included several years as the head coach at a time when some of his athletes were the fastest paddlers in the world. He's worked more recently as head coach of the women's kayak team with the Chinese Canoe Association. And currently, he's the sprint coach for the Japanese Canoe Federation and helped their men's K4 team qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. He's also the author of dozens of books and scientific articles. He is an expert by any measure in making athletes paddle faster, which is fortunate because that's what we've got him here this week to talk about. Alexander, I'm going to hand over to you. Enjoy the presentation. Folks, get those questions in and I'll be joining you again in around 45 minutes. Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Ross. So, it's a quite strange experience for me talking to the screen without see the people. Even I know many of you. I even don't know what to say. Or good morning, good afternoon, because we are everywhere around the world. So, but we will try to do it. I think the topic I'm going to speak is quite important for actual times. It became very important since 2010, when 200 meters became part of Olympic program. But I think this speed development, power development is very important anyway, and became more important with 200 meters, and becomes even more important now with K4 500 meters. The power is everywhere because I think it is potential for further development of performances in our sport, generally speaking. Because looking at what happened, I'm involved in our sport science, in top sport science Olympic Games in Moscow, 1980s, and seen development of all sections of our national teams. The times were progressing. For example, in 500 meters, time 200 meters time came from 36 seconds, 37 seconds in 1994, when we had world championship over 200 meters, to 33 seconds now. Liam Heath has done last year in 2017, 33-second time. So it's a big progression, but looking at amount of seconds improved, we spent 25 years to improve 3 seconds. But if you look at 500 meters, which is the distance for K4 now, 40 years progression took, we have progressed from 142 in Moscow to 135 at Beijing, and since then, the times are staying on at the same level, 135. The best time in 2018 was 135, and Adam Van Koveden has shown in Beijing in 2008 135. So we can see progression over 200 meters still goes up, and the speed is increasing, but endurance probably is not progressing much. So if we look after potentials of progression for endurance, we can see a very interesting picture. Difference between speed for 200 meters and 500 meters, drop of speed is about 7 seconds. But normally during many years. But if you look now, 34 seconds, between 34 seconds and 1:35, 34 seconds for 200 meters, and 1:35 for 500 meters, drop of the speed is about 10 seconds. So much bigger than normally happened during the whole history of our sport. And if we normalize the time from 200 up to 500 meters, if athletes would go with the same speed, we've got about result on 200 meters should be about 1 minute 35 in K1. So it's massive potentials to develop our sport, just developing power for canoeists. And maybe this Tokyo Olympics, the speed will be about these levels. But we're not racing K1 500s now, we're racing K4, and K4 requires even more power than K1. So I think K4 time should be improved quite significantly comparing with last times, like 1 minute 19, and this time should be faster, about 2 seconds might be faster, if we do right work. Looking at what we are doing and what achievements of the athletes are around these performances on the race course. Training volume. I remember the times when we were requiring 1,500 hours training a year from the athletes. Massive number. I was coaching at times. I was coaching juniors, Soviet juniors. Was leading a scientific group for Soviet juniors, and I was asking juniors to do 1 hour, 200 hours of work a year. But my last athletes, you know, my athletes took gold medals in London, in Rio, so they did about 600 hours. 600 hours, working hours a year. So it's like twice less than juniors were doing in previous times. So I see massive potentials here because I was trying to do a lot of, as much hours as we can, as much hours as my athletes can to do, but we couldn't do more because I also was asking intensity. We were doing lots of power development work. They just were getting tired and couldn't do more hours. And it's a question of balance, volume, intensity. So, and I think 600 hours is just our potentials, because if I couldn't do, maybe some of coaches can do it. So at least about 400, 600 hours of our potentials to increase the volume of intensive training. And the level, top level, if we look around, top level of strength, if you look around, the bench could be about 320 kilograms bench press, squats about 360 kilograms, deadlift about 402 kilograms, what athletes in other sports are doing. And we're doing nearly twice less. So this just says, whatever good we do gym, we do it not good enough. So we can improve still a lot. And I think, talking about progression of our sport, it is around these parameters: increase volume of intensive work and increase the maximum power of the athletes. These two parameters we have to pay attention the most. So for this I have done some work, improving my training programs over the last 30 years, I would say, trying to improve. When I started working in Spain as practical coach, because before I was leading scientific group in Soviet Union, but when I moved to Spain, I became a coach, and I noticed that science is not enough. We have to apply the science to individuals in canoeing. So how to do it, and I started developing my training program, trying to find the way to go up. So, and I think I have some changes in the program science done, developing technique, changing a bit approach to the technique athletes are paddling. I start using a lot of interval training, because I think is the future, to combine endurance and power development. and change periodization in the year, just putting power as leading factor of progression during the year, and has changed the gym training, focusing the gym on the fast twitch fibers of the athletes, because to be powerful, you should not be strong. We're not trying to be strong, we're trying to be fast. So we have to pay all attention. I changed all gym to impact fast twitch fibers of the athletes. And this is what we have done. I'm more known as a 200 meters coach, but during the year I was applying this approach to different sections of our sport. I coached 1,000 meters, and including Team Brabants and Canoe, fast track Canoe in the UK. We had special program, 500 meters Canoe, and the athletes absolutely new in canoeing. Athletes from different sports were selected to take medal in London. In 1 year, they start doing second final in European Championship, never happened in canoe before. So 5,000 meters, my athletes training with 200 meters group had medal in 2013, and obviously most known group of 200 meters since 2010, they were taking medals. I'm just trying to say what I'm going to speak about is useful for all distances and all sections of in our sport, not for 200 meters only. So about technique, power stroke technique. I start putting, I changed first part of the stroke, trying to move, to improve not only quality of the stroke when you're driving the paddle through the water, but trying to improve power application on the boat. And for this fundamental, pay attention not only to this quality of the stroke, but pay attention to the length of the which boat is making after the stroke. Because stroke we cannot not improve, we cannot make longer, we can just increase the stroke rate. And all top athletes going with the top stroke rate. And looking at the stroke rates, you can compare a junior, club junior, and world champion, and sometimes world champions have lower stroke rate than the club athletes. Like the same Team Brabants was doing sometimes winning World Cup, was doing like less than 100 strokes per minute. So, and the way to go faster is to improve the length after the stroke. If the stroke is 1 meter, so what happened afterwards before touch the water again, this is our resource to improve the speed of the boat. So, and for this we have to change the attitude of the athletes, how the athletes is acting. And basically all happened before touch the water. Very important thing happened before touch the water. If you're looking at this is at McKeever on the stroke, the main thing, not the main thing, the important thing is start the stroke before touch the water. Start rolling action, start moving the body, getting inertia, getting momentum of body rotation before touch the water. Otherwise, we stopping speed of rotation when we grab the water. So it's really fundamental, and dynamic catch is really fundamental. Afterwards, I have improved a lot work of the top hand. Also, is really important part of the technique. If you look at the all stroke components which we've got to improve, first is going up in the speed. First, we should pay attention to the top hand, manage the paddle. We have to lock the paddle, and to lock the paddle, important is not pulling hand. What most of the athletes focus on is just trying to press down by pulling arm and stop the paddle moving backwards in the water. No, top hand is super important. It's our pivot, and top hand is managing the paddle, managing the lock, and managing the position, and manage the speed of the paddle. And pulling arm only doing movement, pulling for movement forward. And this is, I'm paying attention to this because many coaches are scared to talk about top hand asking to hold it with the trunk, but if it stays with the trunk and goes forward together with rotation, the blade becomes slower than the boat goes and not locking. So it has to be pushed in the water proactively. It's a lots of details here. I cannot stop now and talk about all details, but it's really important top hand to go fast. And top hand should be faster than the water to lock the blade and give to the athletes support in the water. Second important thing what I have paid a lot of attention is manage the rotation, because rotation, many beginners, coaches talking about rotation in the boat, but we have to rotate around the blade, around the bubble in the water, what we are making with the paddle, and rotate around there. And important point is, you probably can see on your screen, or because on my screen is behind the video screen. So important is from pushing the footrest, transmit this power across the body to the opposite hip, not rotate on the seat, but transmit the power to opposite seat and rotate opposite hip around the blade in the water. This is fundamental thing what many athletes missing. They sliding, pulling side backwards and rotating in the seat, and someone using even rotational seats, and this makes them to do mistake in canoeing. Move backwards, body weight move backwards rather than move it forwards, because body weight is in opposite hip. And this power from the footrest should come through opposite hip, top shoulders on opposite side, top hand, and back into the blade. This power circuit is very important to throw the body forward from the catch. This is fundamental thing to go fast as well. And run the boat. This means what I have spoken at the beginning, not really pulling the blade, but pushing the body forward. Start from air, rebound from the body, from the water, and push the body forward, like athletes running. No one's stepping on the soil and pushing afterwards. Everyone attacking the soil and rebounding from the soil. Anyone, any kid, any young boy knows that. But coming to the boat, many people start pulling in the water and just changing the side and pulling again. No, we have to attack the water from the air, rebound from the water, use momentum of the body, and fly away from the stroke. These three fundamental things what I'm really talking every session for many years to the same athletes, and let the athletes go faster. Because eventually we have to do racing 200 meters, we have to do about 96 strokes, but as long glide afterwards as possible. Split effort training, in interval training, basically, I just have modified a bit, not modified, has organized classic interval training, because now, particularly in internet, you can see such big variety of opinion what is in the interval training, from just short sprints and saying any training with stops during the training, with intervals, any length of intervals, it's interval training, and lots of opinion. So these two trying to simplify it. I just attach it or linked it to the normal efforts we are doing at every pace. How to do interval training for example, VO2 max development is different effort than doing interval training for racing speed. And 1,000 meters interval training is different for 500 and 200 meters. So I just took standard effort, 1.5 lengths of standard effort for the pace we are looking for, and split in shorter efforts. So to VO2 max work, interval set should be about 6 minutes total, and you can split it in 1 minute, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, whatever. But this is the set. Afterwards, going to 1,000 meters, 5 minutes, split in shorter effort, or 1,000 meters or 5 minutes, split in shorter effort. For 500 minutes, 500, split in 200. So, and this allowed to to use interval training all year and trying and developing more emphasize power development, because what interval training gives us main thing from the beginning of the period of development, for example, VO2 max speed, capacity of the athletes, we can start working with final target speed. If you want athletes at the end of the year go for 8, now for example he is doing 8 minutes 20, we want him to do 8 minutes, we can do 8 1 minutes 1 minute time, and going we through this training we are developing power, technique, feeling for final speed, and all process becomes shorter and faster. The same for 1000 meters, the same for 500 meters. So it's like little addition of power which we do every session, and process goes faster. Like famous runner Emil Zatopek told us, I know how to run slow, I want to learn to run fast. So in this allow to athletes go fast from the beginning of the periods of the training. For 1000 meters I do split 6 minutes, for 1000 splits 5 minutes, and so on for all intensities. Very important rest intervals here. They should be about 1 minute. I'm working with 2 rest intervals: short, about between 1 and 2 minutes, and medium, 5-7 minutes. Fundamental difference between these intervals, as I understand, short intervals let the heart rate come down, but lactic still, lactic acid still in the muscle. So athletes feels recovery, but muscles still not. And medium interval, 5-7 minutes, lets lactic acid come out of the muscles. So, and short intervals, all interval training I'm using is just take main length of effort and split it in parts and put short interval between these parts, between 1 and 2 minutes. So, and this works well, and I do a lot of this training, much more than I see my colleagues do. The targets here is start developing any pace at target speed, and afterwards build up the length of the effort by interval training, and eventually come to repetitions and do full length of the training, what we do traditionally, I would say. This allowed to get a few benefits. First, to justify duration of efforts. If you do, because I couldn't find in modern recommendation how long should be the effort. Couldn't find explanation. For maximum length, we've got explanation. Metabolic resources. Each metabolic resource has limited time. So, and but for interval training, I cannot find these recommendations, and I just joined these 2 ideas in the same method. It allowed to join metabolic and power development, emphasize development of local endurance, muscular endurance, not VO2 max or whatever, but also which is limiting our speed and endurance. Public technique becomes very important factor of planning, because from the beginning we have to come to eventual speed. Eventual speed for VO2 max intensity is not really problem, because any athletes can go with this speed, but higher is the targets. More difficult come, for example, for 1:35 time for 500 meters. Not every athlete can do it even for 200 meters. So we have to first improve technique, make athletes able to go short effort with target speed, and afterwards, okay, longer, and we've got nearly guarantee to go 1:35 at the end of the season or a couple of years. So it helps a lot to make close your target speed. And allowed to use approach in whole training during whole year, to use approach from shorter to longer or from power to endurance. This is fundamental thing I'm using during whole year. Looking at the exact sessions, what I'm doing, for example, doing to develop VO2 max, endurance and sub-race pace, we can use or go in 4 minutes with 1 minute's rest 8 times at the beginning, and afterwards make less efforts and come to the same 4 minutes at the end of the period of training, expecting the athletes going faster. But we can do different way, start 1 minute's time on, 1 minute off, time 6, and afterwards 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, times 3 sets, and afterwards coming to 4 minutes. And from this way, we can start already with target speed, what we're planning for the athletes to the end of the year. And we come early or to this speed, or athletes will do faster than was in the program. So this is example for VO2 max development. We can do, for example, 500 miles testing session, benchmarking session is 500 meters times 10. What I'm controlling the speed, the level of VO2 max for the athletes. We can do this session just from October to the end of the year, no problem, and expect athletes progressing in this session. Or we can start doing 60 minutes times 6, 1 minute off times 4, and afterwards 90 seconds, 500 meters, or 2 minutes, 3 minutes. 3 minutes I'm using maximum effort for 500 meters to develop oxygen consumption. So these are two different ways. Second way, duration building up, what I'm using normally, and is more efficient, as I know. The same we can do for 200 meters, start doing 100 meters times 12, asking athletes or trying, changing technique, improving the technique, and trying to achieve top speed athletes is looking for at the end of the year. Improvement 1 second or 1.5 seconds. So start practicing from the beginning, and afterwards, okay, athletes can do 100 minutes times 12, all 12, not only 1 or 2 or 3, no, all 12 to do at this speed. And afterwards 150 meters, and afterwards coming to 200 minutes times 8 and shorter. So, and the same thing for 500 and 1,000 meters. So this way we can make our training integrate power development into endurance development of endurance, and make it more efficient, increase the quality of training. But this approach should be somehow integrated into the whole year periodization. So I call it power-led periodization. I use some terminology, not because it's basically a new thing to do. I never pretend to do some new thing in our canoeing history. No, it's just coaching terms to highlight the main idea of the for you what could be done. So this approach supposed to have planning triads. First step, power development, is shorter efforts, trying to get technique and get proper speed, target speed, which is quite complicated sometimes for 500s and 200 meters at the beginning of the year, get this speed. Next stage, capacity, is to develop athletes' capacity to complete weak volume at this speed. So start doing interval training for 1 session, 2 sessions, 3, up to every day interval sessions for target speed, 1 session of 4. So, and afterwards sustainability, so trying to come into the proper distance, length of the distance, duration of effort to go at this pace. Because it's different thing, athletes should fight psychology, pain in the muscle, all this sort of thing. At the same time, this is a process going through the year, at each stage, each period of training. And at the same time, every moment, every week, we have to combine all these 3 targets. For using power development for next stage, working hard for capacity of main targets of this period and maintain previously got abilities and trying to apply it for longer efforts. All these three, about 5 up to 6 sessions a week for capacity, and afterwards a bit for the future, a bit for the past. And this way we're moving through the whole year a bit faster and more efficient. So in practice, this looks like by periods. First, using resistance, short efforts. I'm doing lots of session 20 strokes with massive resistance to make sure athletes strong enough and fast enough. Changing technique for a new level of speed. Afterwards, we come in for endurance, doing the same work at the same speed, the same technique for as big volume as possible a week, and afterwards we coming to full distance. So here you can see like capacity, for example, start with split 12 minutes for threshold work, afterwards split 6 minutes for VO2 max work, split 3 minutes, split 300 meters, and afterwards we coming to proper maximum speed and racing preparation. So this basically change physiological approach for the training. If traditional progression would be introduction with about the same effort for capacity introduction, afterwards development, big volume, and afterwards maintenance. Here we're going through phases: power, capacity, sustainability, which changes the content of the training, basically. Targets is the same, but content is changing. Goes from shorter to longer, from power to endurance. So this allowed to develop muscular power and efficiency of athletes for every stage. Develop also physiological power parameters, because every physiological, for example, aerobic capacity has VO2 max and consistency working at aerobic pace. First is power, second is sustainability. So for each physiological source of the athlete's energy, we can first emphasize on power and afterwards come to capacity and sustainability. And fundamental progression goes through power, capacity, sustainability phases. We can massively increase impact on local endurance because, unfortunately, main limits of, for example, the same aerobic VO2 max capacity are in the muscle, not in the lungs, not in the blood. They are in the muscle. So we can emphasize this parameter by interval training and this periodization. And also I start using some 2 weeks blocks alternating these targets to make long winter training a bit less boring. So in practical terms, this looks like this. Till January, I'm doing these blocks, combining blocks power, VO2 max, power, VO2 max, power, VO2 max. And at home conditions is easy to do it because all athletes are together and not traveling, but afterwards difficult to organize training like that. And I start doing this with power, capacity, sustainability phases, going through rest of the year up to the main competition. This is example of my planning, and practically, for example, this is program for 2016. I think you will have it. You can ask ICF to print it out for you or copy for you. Here are shortly content of the training for all periods. What exactly main kind of sessions we are using for each period. And last thing I had changed quite significantly is fast twitch gym. I call it fast twitch gym to emphasize all targets for our work in the gym on development of fast twitch, amount of fast twitch fibers and endurance of fast twitch fibers. So because eventually, from the beginning, when my athletes started taking first medals, many colleagues were asking me, Alex, what you're probably doing a lot of gym. You're doing quite, and how much gym should we do? What means be strong? How much strong is strong for canoeing? These kind of questions. And but the main thing, I'm not doing too much gym. I'm doing about the same gym what I was doing, have been doing maybe 20 years ago, or before start 200 meters. But different approach, because we don't need to be stronger. We should not measure by maximum strength only, or even strength endurance. We have to be faster. This is fundamental thing. What we have to remember. My athletes, like McKeever was saying, Alex, don't forget, we are canoeists. We are not weightlifters. So please don't forget canoeing. So first we have to, all sessions should be emphasized on the fast twitch fibers development, amount of the fibers or endurance of these fibers. Before, the science many years ago, like 30 years ago, or even less, 20 years ago, still was talking that is genetically done to the athletes when he's born, VO2 max and amount of fast twitch fibers. But if you can read modern researches for last maybe 20 years or 15 years, they're saying all depends on the training. And what you are training is improving. If you training fast twitch fibers, the structure of muscles are changing. If you training endurance at speed, proper speed, these fast twitch fibers become more resistant. So we have to just change the training program, and we can change the body. What basically says the modern science. We have to focus on hypertrophy of the kayak muscles, not hypertrophy for bodybuilders. I would emphasize bodybuilders and kayak athletes, maximum strength athletes. Our athletes should be very strong, but very thin. Muscles should not be big, because big muscles work like suspension in the car, like pillow. You stretch it, becomes smaller, but slow down the body. Muscles should be lean and long, but very strong. And obviously muscles which are doing the stroke, not just making a nice body for the beach. So these two aspects are very important. So any book saying till now says, not any, but many books saying the hypertrophy mainly is about 10 or 12 reps. No, these 10, 12 reps are pumping up the muscle, but not making fast twitch fibers. We need to use the gym 4 to 6 reps, which makes athletes stronger, but not really big volume of the muscles. This is much more useful for kayak, at least doesn't slow down the body. And muscles which are not moving kayak, they slow down the athletes. Breathing muscles. Also, we have to combine strength development with canoeing. This is fundamental. We cannot just focus on strength development. We have to somehow, anyhow, to combine it with aerobic work to make these new muscles which we are making, to make them breathing. And transmission into the board. You know that one thing athletes is strong on the bench or even sitting on the paddling machine, and another thing paddling or paddling in kayak. Always athletes is weaker, because the problem is main problem is not really maximum strength. Much bigger problem is application into the board. Simple, we can lift 160 or 180 bench pull, but we can pull only about 37 kilograms. We have done measurements on the blade. Olympic champions, 200 meters, pulls maximum 37 kilograms, even with the resistance. He has this force applied on the blade. So rest of the strength goes away. So application, transmission is probably most fundamental thing than development. So to go this way, we have to develop fast twitch fibers. Exists three main things: load higher than on the pull, load higher than 80% of 1 rep maximum, rate of execution faster than 1 rep per second or faster, and in state of fatigue. These three parameters are making the body use as many fast twitch fibers as the body has. So, and also groups of exercises, some sub-programs for big muscle, the small muscles. It's different gym sessions for different muscles. 3 kinds of sessions for big muscles, for canoeing muscles, and for transmitting muscles. Single paddle machines. I was using a lot to transmit power into the blade, into the blade and into the board. Gym on the water with big resistance. You can see resistance which I was using is massive sinks. Anything can be in the water playing a role of a resistor. It just has to be proper volume, and size of resistance depends on the technique, not of any other thing, because technique should be still racing technique. If athletes able to do racing technique, we can be increasing the volume till technique becomes dragging technique. So not good. So, but resistance is as big as the athletes can cope with. And obviously, technique of power stroke, what I have spoken before. There should be in any pace, any conditions on the water should be this technique. So from all amount of targets in the gym we can do, I'm doing only maximum strength, 3 reps, just to make athletes feeling strong, hypertrophy from 4 to 6 reps, and power endurance mainly on the water, but also doing about 20 reps with low weights, like 50 kilograms weight with quick execution, but very limited, because athletes, it's only endurance I am doing, this quick execution endurance. And anyway, athletes said, when I asked them, these good athletes, ask them, what do you think about work with the resistance or work with in the gym, this strength endurance? And it's about the same, but on the water it's much better. So it's, we can do it because we cannot paddle sometimes, and this is sort of replacement, but not really very efficient replacement. So I spent my 45 minutes, and I would emphasize as main approaches I'm using to develop further my training program, and basically in training to emphasize power as much as possible, like leading ability of the athletes, intensity as high as possible to develop endurance, and quality of training, which is technique, control of intensity, and control of fatigue of the athletes. So thank you very much. I would be really pleased to answer your questions.
Alex, that was fantastic, and a good measurement of how compelling your presentation was is that pretty well from the start through to the finish, we had the same number of people watching. So that's always a very good sign, Alex, that you held the audience in the palm of your hand. I certainly found it interesting. I was a little bit
Thank you.
A little bit interested to hear about you talking about using the gym not just to get a good body for the beach, but also for paddling, which is a great disappointment. So if people have questions, please go to the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. You'll see there's already quite a few questions there. There may be a question there that already covers the topic you want to ask. So just like that question, and then it will gradually work its way up to the top of the list. So I'm going to kick off with the first question, Nicholas. Now you should be able to, Alex, you should be able to see the questions there if you click on the Q&A tab yourself. The questions should come up on the screen, so some of them are quite.
You told me don't pay
No, you
attention
can
to
do it
this.
now. I give you permission to do it now. You now have permission to do it.
Because I see Q and question and answers 13.
Yeah, Q&A. The Q&A one is the one you
and chat 19. Which should I click?
just the Q&A one. The Q&A one
Q&A.
has the 13 questions there already. I'll read the first question out for you, Alex. It's from
Nicholas Perry. Nicholas Perry
is. That's right. He says, when you are talking about maximal speed of an athlete, how important is technical execution at maximal velocity? Do you do specific technical work which is only possible at maximal speed, or is low intensity technical work valuable for elite athletes?
Yeah, let's talk about maximal speed. Maximal speed limiting much more by application of strength than for the strength itself. Much more limited by application, by technical ability to apply the athlete's power into the board, to move it into the board. And I started from very low intensity. This power stroke, what I told you, I started learning Olympic athletes, Olympic champions. 1 month before Olympic race, I am still doing session for technique, for power stroke. For Rio, for London, we were 1 month before low stroke, staying a lot in air, stroke, stay again, stroke, stay again. 1 month before Olympic, win Olympic gold medal. So because technique is fundamental, and unfortunately athletes are losing technique when doing just speed work. Speed is killing the technique. So athletes should do this work permanently. The work consists in very slow, about 40 stroke rate per minute, stroke rate, and long stay in air. Two times in air, 1 time goes through the water. This work I'm doing in sets, on normal set, 90 seconds on, 30 off, times 6, times 4, or times 6 as well. So all sessions just doing bang, bang, bang. The problem is what I told you. The problem of speed is lock at time in the water, the blade, and apply momentum of body rotation on the stroke, because athletes are not strong enough physically to move at this speed what they do. They have to use inertia and momentum of body rotation to move the boat forward. And this is what is dying when you're doing speed work, is first thing, athletes start moving blade backwards. And this is what we have to recover permanently during the whole year. And I start doing this work with 90 seconds, and after sometimes doing for K4, I'm, for example, doing it for 3 minutes, 40 stroke rate, 2 times in air, 1 times in the water timing, and go 2 sessions a week. It's very important sessions. Afterwards, I start doing, obviously, combining this with the gym. Afterwards, second important thing is what I'm doing in the gym, this pulling canoeing machine. They allow you to do stroke very slow and apply all muscles of the body to move the trolley, sliding trolley, to move it forward. These machines are doing a few companies now, and it's really, really important to develop transmitting muscles to move the boat. And afterwards, third step, work with resistance on the water, always paying attention to the technique. The same technique should be the same, like with slow pace, the same with hard pace and resistance. I'm saying to my athletes, I should not see, in technique, I should not see you are using resistance. Technique should be racing technique. And last step, step number 4, is doing technique of maximum speed. You cannot start doing maximum speed before athletes gone through all these stages. Will be, everyone has sort of threshold speed or top of the speed and cannot go faster, not because they're not strong enough. You can no correlation between maximum strength in the gym and speed on the water. There's no correlation. It's all in the technique and transmission into the boat.
Okay, next question is from Paulo. Could you please explain again the concept of rotation around the blade and the transmission of the power to the opposite hip?
Yeah, this is very important because we are talking rotation, and we see how atlas is rotating in the boat. And we ask him drive the hips, we ask him rotate 45 degrees minimum, move very wide in the boat, have good amplitude, but it doesn't matter. Athletes can do it without even move the boat. Important is lock the blade by the top hand, make the bubble of the water, like ball of the water, to along the blade strongly, and afterwards move the body like line going across the chest, across the hips, going to this bubble, and move this line, move around the blade forward, controlling it by the top hand. This is our pole, our post to move around. We have to move around this post, not around the seat. So, and this is why I believe I think the rotational seat is not good, because this is moves hip backwards. Pulling side, he moves backwards, and this is the mistake. And athletes start, if you're not controlling it, they start doing it even with normal seat. So, and always power, when you applying the power, you put in pressure between the pulling hand and the footrest. This is the lock point, which gives you point of rotation subjectively for the athletes. And afterwards, for this, athletes should feel every stroke power going across the stomach to the opposite shoulder. This power goes by the hip, you pressing the footrest, and this power goes across the stomach to the top shoulder, to the top hand, and from the top hand to the blade. This is why very important, top hand, because this is the way which power is using to go back to the blade. So, and opposite hip is the control. Opposite hip gives the power to the athletes. When they're moving to feel the power, our athletes feel the power when they're doing this movement, because body weight is here. This is what we have to accelerate. This part, what we have to accelerate to have a long glide. And this opposite hip is locking, hold this circuit to move the power around the body. And if athletes doesn't feel, I'm asking athletes feel the stomach. Do you feel your stomach on each stroke? Yes. If not, this means the hip, pulling hip goes backwards, not opposite hip goes forward and body weight goes forward. No, athletes is swinging, sitting on the same place and pushing lots of power backwards. And a long time ago, we have done measurements on the seat, strength of the seat going backwards. Strength of the seat going backwards sometimes is higher than on the blade. It's on the blade is never more than 37, 35 kilograms. But to the seat, athletes can pull about 45 kilograms. So, and this is the strong line to move around and push whole structure forward. I'm not sure whether I have explained.
No, I think you have it. And there's a follow-up question. I think you've sort of answered this already, but do we push the top hand forward or down? Which one is best?
No, top hand has three phases. Talking about video picture, three phases. Generally, top hand should go forward, not up, never up, should go forward, but working along the shaft. This, what goes along the shaft, this is working part of the effort, and forward obviously is the main body movement on the race course, and has three phases. First phase, when the athlete is sitting and ready for the catch, the blade is about minimum 20 centimeters from the water or higher, at maximum pace nearly from horizontal position. Top hand pushes the blade forward into the water, not forward, sorry, into the water to lock the blade, and has to move, disconnect with the opposite shoulder, and has to move faster than the shoulder, because if we connect top hand to the shoulder, the blade will move with the body speed, with the boat speed, and never gets a lock. Because to get a lock in the water, the blade should be moved faster than the water, and top hand should make the blade working faster than the water. So it's like feeling like you holding top pulling hand and the shaft, and start rotation, like hold this lever by the top hand. When the blade is locked, so top hand should hold the paddle, moving forward with the body, a second phase. And when the blade coming nearly to come out, top hand should be pushed forward, extracting the blade and accelerating whole body forward. This is obviously easy to say to see on the video. Like if you looking, for example, 2012 video in London from the top, you can see how McKeever paddles. He paddles like catch after very struggling to move the boat is hard in terms of one and going forward. This is what is on the video. If talk about feeling of the athletes is different. Athletes feels different. In feeling of the athletes, I'm asking, be ready in air, attack the water, and push yourself forward together with the top hand. This mainly is like work because all last like 0.2 seconds. You cannot make phases. Should be the same movement. It's the same movement, but visually it's separated on the phases. So the action should start before touch the water, trying to accelerate the body around the blade, not pulling backwards, and accelerate the blade forward to spear in the water, to make the bubble and go around the bubble. And afterwards, this whole body fly away, trying to jump forward.
Right, we are in the Northern Hemisphere. We are about to head into a winter, long, cold winter. So a question from Michael for you, Alex. What would be a reasonable application if you cannot paddle during winter, if lakes are iced over, for example? Is it just gym and running and ergometers?
Well, I would say depends a lot of the age of the athletes. Depends a lot of the age. If we're talking about unlimited conditions, you can paddle, you cannot paddle. It's one thing. And another thing, if you just have no conditions to paddle, too cold or whatever. So, but for juniors and for young athletes, I spent 10 years with Soviet juniors. So for juniors, I believe it's very important to develop whole body and be athletic generally, and have athletic body. And also consumption and oxygen consumption starts with still with the lungs, with the blood, and this. So it's important running, swimming, and hold this kind of things. And gym, at this age, 15, 16 years age, young athletes don't need much gym because they are becoming stronger anyway, because puberty and this or they growing up, and they becoming stronger every year, irrelevantly what training you are doing. And more important for juniors do endurance work, but fast endurance work. Which just I have spoken, the fast series up to 30 seconds. This relatively lightweight. This is more efficient than heavy weight and building up the volume of muscles, which for juniors is good because main problem of juniors, because the muscles are growing anyway, so VO2 max comes down. VO2 max comes down, and we have been worried much more about maintain VO2 max than develop the strengths. With under 23, we already can do strengths, and have to do it. I wasn't doing, and now I'm not doing any running or paddling for under 23. Focus on the water if it's possible, and can do maximum strengths and this sort of thing. And the best winter training obviously is on the paddle machines to replace canoeing. It's still if you cannot paddle, it's still the best thing and useful. And it's very useful for, I'm using it even with water, using it just to speak to the athletes about technique and correction. And this single arm sliding trolleys is very good thing for strength development. Much more useful and much better than just bench press, bench pull, because this muscle should catch up bench pull. If we were testing, my athletes, 200 meters athletes, started on the sliding machine in 2010, pulling about 25-30 kilograms only, because I attached this machine to the stack of weights and lifting the weights, and they were able to lift only about 25 kilograms behind them. So they finished in 2016 lifting 85 kilograms. This is the main progression. If in the gym with bench pull they came from 125 to 155, so it's progression. But in this they start pulling 3 times, and I think 3 more times, and I think this is the main limiting factor. So we have to use it, but going through and for all athletes, I would say, not all, but for all athletes, I'm not doing running at all. I'm doing gym, not more than 1,000 meters athletes do, and do gym all specific and resistance work. I think main factor what gave me performances last 2 Olympic cycle is resistance work on the water and short interval training, like 20 strokes times 10 times 4, like for 1 hour, 20 strokes with resistance. This was the main factor to be, and obviously controlling, always running on motorboat around, controlling this process. So this like more and more specific, and obviously depends on conditions.
It's a good comprehensive answer. In fact, you answered several questions there, including from James, who wanted to know how often do you do resistance sessions on the water. I think you just touched on that there. A question from Lasma for you. Is there any difference in timing for strength training at the gym? Sorry, I'll just, yeah. Is there any difference in strength timing for training at the gym? Here we are. Is it more beneficial before or after the water training? So is there any difference in timing for strength training at the gym? Is it more beneficial before or after the water training?
Well, obviously, this depends a lot of the age of the athletes, because I always had in the group under 23s and senior athletes, always mixed. And it depends of conditions which you got. But generally, and conditions and time of the year, because question is, if you ask me in October or in July, for example, that would make massive difference in between, because during the year impact becomes impact of or volume of gym training becomes smaller and smaller. So normally I do is if take generic training during whole year, I do water 4 sessions a day. First water session, very impacting water session. Afterwards gym session in about 11 o'clock, 1 hour break, rest, lunch, sleeping, and afterwards water session again, and afterwards short gym. So 3 big sessions: water, gym, water, and 1 little afternoon gym session, which is about like 120 chins or 120 pulls in the winter, or this quick execution speed endurance circuit for 30-40 minutes. So 2 gyms. But for example, at the beginning of the year, what I have shown you, the periodization, I'm doing 2 weeks strength emphasis, 2 weeks VO2max emphasis for 200 meters and for 1,000 meters. Doesn't matter, just different lengths of the sets, but targets is the same. 2 weeks power, 2 weeks VO2max, power, VO2max till January, till Christmas, or till the end of January. And when I do strength emphasis, so for 200 meters, I was doing first session gym in the morning, hard gym, afterwards water, easy water, technique water, this slow motion. In the afternoon at 4 o'clock, gym again, good gym, and afterwards maybe easy paddling again. So 4 sessions, but first gym, and afterwards easy paddling. And for 1,000 meters, instead 2 gyms, I'm doing one good gym and 1 really heavy resistance session. And 2, so at the day we got 1 power emphasis, I've got 4 sessions, 1 session resistance, 1 session very heavy gym, and 2 paddling sessions combining technique and short sprints. It's till January and February.
Okay. I think we are running out of time. Maybe we have time for one, maybe two more questions. I'm just going through the list, Alex, to find topics that you haven't really touched on. Nicholas asks, he's someone who's focused on team boats. Do you think it is more important to have highly talented individual athletes or a crew of athletes who are more capable of being perfectly synchronized together?
Didn't understand well the the question, but talking about crew boats, particularly for Japan now, I focus on crew boats because they on K4 because they have not too many athletes. The K4 is already qualified. So for crew boats and particularly well, different K4 and K2. K2 is different, and you can paddle whatever you want and combine athletes whatever you want because K2 depends of individual compatibility of two athletes. It's just part of training, doing training in K2 during the whole year when the weather is okay, it's okay. Because eventually you have to find two athletes paddling similar. And this is the best way. It's very difficult to change and be successful in K2 because always around the world will be 20, 30 crews with very compatible athletes. And if you will change the technique for one athlete, you probably have not time enough to do it. You have to find these athletes. And it is possible to find two athletes compatible normally. But K4, you have to change technique anyway, because one stroke on K4 takes long time, long distance, and no one paddles naturally in K1 the same like in K4. So you have to let the boat go more than 6 meters before start next stroke. So for these athletes should change the rhythm, should change the feeling, and you have to change technique anyway because no one paddles the same in K1. And obviously you can see if you put the athletes just putting in K4, they paddling like in K1, pulling and not letting the boat go. And I'm spending a lot of time teaching the athletes push and go for a long time and afterwards attack the water again. Never put blade in the water, attack the water. Everything what I have spoken about power stroke, sometimes I'm even saying to the athletes, instead power stroke, I'm saying them K4 stroke. They understand better, particularly if you're not working for a long time with athletes, like now I'm with Japanese athletes, I'm just saying, guys, we're learning K4 stroke. And they're doing this power stroke. So for K4, does exist, I know, a few approaches in the world. Some people, like the same Hungarians, they put in boys in the boat just before the race. Even the best boats are training together for a long, long time because it's not only technique, it's psychology as well, physiology as well. But yes, sometimes because selection, because different issue, so putting the people in K4 just before the race. But if there is any possibility, it's better to train together. Just start with long technique stroke and afterwards and train together as long time as possible. Normally, I start crew boat training from January, at least, because we're going for warm weather comes. Otherwise, I could start early, just doing technique. Because we're doing technique work anyway. In K4, it's easy to explain what you are looking for because the boat requires proper technique. And here exists one really dangerous thing, what many people trying to avoid. Because when you put in people in crew boats, technique, particularly in K4, technique becomes different. The athlete is doing very good 3-4 sessions, 5 sessions, boat goes up, very good, and after comes down. Why? Because whatever your compatibility is, technique in K4 always different, involving different muscles, and these different muscles getting tired faster than adapted muscles, and the athlete's losing feeling. The boat goes down. So if this period comes into the competition, so you lost the competition. So you have to starting crew boats, you have to or put the athletes within 3-4 sessions go to the race, or let the athletes train properly, come down, afterwards come up, and this is time afterwards lasts for whatever. So if you start doing crew boats training in January, this lets you come good for World Cups already in good feeling in crew boats.
Alex, we've gone well over time, so we do appreciate you taking that extra time with us this evening. I know it's getting into the evening in Japan. You're probably ready to go and have dinner. So I thank you for how comprehensive your presentation has been. A lot more questions there that we didn't get a chance to get to. Maybe we forward those on to you and you can have a look. Very honest with your answers, Alex. I'm sure that you would like me to pass on to anyone watching who is coaching a men's K4 team for the Olympics next year. Maybe don't use any of the tricks that Alex taught you today for your K4 team for next year, because Alex is already there with his men's K4 team from Japan. And we wish your team the best of luck, Alex, next year in Tokyo. As I mentioned, the live stream of this event, of this podcast or webinar will be up in a couple of days' time, so people can go back and have a look. And don't forget, next week, same time, we'll have a webinar on anti-doping education, how to keep canoeing clean. So please go online and register for that, and I think that will be a fascinating topic. Alex, have you got any final comments you'd like to make? Are you happy with the message that you put across today?
Yeah, I'm really happy to talk anything. Thank you very much for inviting me for this webinar. And I see in questions, I see lots of questions about technique. So it's really important and really fundamental thing to go fast. I just wanted to say I've got my Canoe on YouTube. And a few years ago, I was really fancy to make videos, technique videos on the base of my athletes. So you can just type on YouTube Alexander Nikonorov, my name and surname, and you will see videos explaining in details everything I've been talking now. So you're welcome. It's free, it's for all world open. I never made secrets from what I am doing. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, and in fact, Alex Boyd has just said, I found your videos on YouTube very helpful for both my own paddling and my coaching. So there is a thumbs up recommendation for Alex's YouTube videos if people want to go on there and further develop what Alex has taught us today. Thank you so much, Alex, for your time. Best of luck in Tokyo. Good luck ahead of the Olympics next year. We are, fingers crossed, hoping that we're going to be there next year, and we're going to get some racing in before the Olympics too, which would be nice. We raced in Szeged on the weekend, of course, and hopefully next year we'll have some more sprint, and of course we've got a couple of slalom events coming up in Tucson and Po. So things are happening, albeit slowly, but next year is another year. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everybody, for your participation today. Great to have so many people involved and interacting with our presenters. And hopefully we'll see you all again next week.